you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning and welcome to the March the 14th edition of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we are very glad to have you aboard listening to today's program. Now, we would like for you to be a participant, and you can by doing this. Call this number, 516-453-9921. And if you have a question or a brief comment, just press the number 1 button. And when the call screener comes on, please give your name so that it'll come up on my screen, and then I can call you out when it's your turn. And when that does happen, when I call you out, that means that you can be heard. You can be heard, so you don't have to ask that question, can you be heard? If I call you out, you're on, so do that. Please, ma'am, please, sir. If you are a new caller to the program and you're just listening to it and trying to understand it, but you have a question, all you do is you call that same number and make sure that you tell the call screener that you are a new caller, and we have something set up for you so that you can also be heard. You can also contact me by Gmail, and I will give you that address. It is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, @gmail.com. And you write me a small letter so that I can read it and make sure it's radio edited so that it can be brief and be read so that Mr. Fuller can fully understand what you are saying. That'd be great. And the third way is you can get into the chat room. You can join that by going to blogtalkradio.com. Once you get that, then you want to go to programs, and then you want to go to the Produce Justice show. You hit that button, and then the chat room becomes available for you to enter in and have conversations. And occasionally I will pick up a line or two from what's going on in the chat room and read it. However, do not use the chat room for me to ask your question to Mr. Fuller. That is what the telephone number is for, and that is what the Gmail is for. Other than that, it's just not going to happen for you, so do not do that. Okay, all the books and materials that will be discussed on this show can be found and even obtained by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com, where you will find that Mr. Fuller has written a book called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. That's where all the books and materials and anything show-related, past shows, podcasts, and even I think Mr. Fuller's, when he is on the Carl Nelson show, we have a setup so that you can go to producejustice.com and you can hear the show when Mr. Fuller is on. So you can do that. I think that's all the house cleaning that I have to do today. Yes, I think that's it. Okay, well, let me go on and get on with it. Okay, let me start off by saying good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you this March the 14th, 2023 today? How are you?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Very good. Okay, for those who are new to the program, we have a short segment that we call, or it is entitled, The Thoughts and Expressions on the Mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, what is on your mind today?
Yes, You just mentioned that three-letter word, day, this day. And I took some notes on that a couple of days ago, thinking about just the day that you have. We have this day. This is a gift. The very fact that you have this day, all the people who are listening right now, you've been given this day by whatever created this day and whatever created you to be a part of this day. It was also created by something or some name, whatever name you want to give it. You know you have that you are here. Something created you and put you here. And you're here on this day, wherever you are on the planet Earth. And so it comes down to that two-letter word, this day. Now, what does that mean, that you have this day? Well, just think about it for a short period of time and try to really think about it. You are here. This day is here. You are part of this day. So what is this all about? You are here right now. I'm here. This day. There have been other days. There will be other days, maybe, if we don't have some tragic thing happen in the next 2 or 3 seconds. This day could be gone, and everything else, the universe, as we perceive it to be, and you just evaporate in the next 5 minutes. Everything gone. No universe at all. And this day that goes with it, at this particular time in the history of the known universe, and you're gone with it. But that hasn't happened, not in this instance. Might happen 5 minutes from now, but it hasn't happened right now. So what does all this mean? Well, you're here, this day is here. So if you go according to what I call compensatory logic, making up for what's missing, we can start with this day and look around us, all of us, white people, non-white people, everybody in the known universe. Just look around you and say, okay, I'm here, this day is here, what do I do? Well, when you comb through it all, you might come up with the idea that you're supposed to be doing something of constructive value. And really, that's all it is. When you ask the question, what's it all about? There's a song where the question is asked, what's it all about, Alfie? Starts off that way. It what? This day. How about that for it? You have it. So you say, well, I'm here. I have, some equipment. May not have it all. A leg might be missing. An eye. Or maybe I was born with no sight at all. There are lots of people who are born with no sight. The eye is a very small part of the body. But there are people who are not able to see. And the doctor comes down the hall and say, your baby is born blind. And there's nothing we can do. It's just a defect. And we've looked at it and examined it, and we know from experience this baby will never be able to see. Blind in both eyes. Okay, that's not a happy camp of news at all. And particularly for the baby. But the baby resigns, most people do. We see that. Resign themselves to it and say, well, I'm given other things. I have 2 arms, 2 legs, and like some popular singers or musicians. You use what you have. So a lot of people who are born blind will do what? Play a violin, or play a piano, or play a piano and sing. We see that. Those who have eyes, they can't see, but they can feel, they can hear. Some people come into the world not being able to see or hear. They can just feel things, so they use whatever equipment that they have been given. It's something to think about when you start getting into the spirit of what you might call despair, or just want to give up on everything. This life is all messed up. This world is all messed up. That's true. Absolutely, it is. People are definitely all messed up, every last one of them, every last one of us. This is a messy world. But you can look around and find examples of people and creatures who make the best of what we've been given. So this day, keep that in mind. We have all kinds of problems, economic problems, race problems, you name it. Every type of problem you can name. But you say, well, this day, I'm going to use what I have to try to solve some of these problems and making sure that everything that I do produces a constructive result. So that's what's on my mind. Those two words, starting with this day, and two more words, constructive results. This day should equal constructive results. So you do everything that you think that you can think of that will produce a constructive result. Everything that you say to someone, whether you're a white person or you're talking to a white person, whether you're a non-white person, whether you're male or female, or whatever, constructive results. This day was given to you, so try to get out of this day constructive results and go from there. And for every day that comes up, from now on, that's what I've been thinking about, just starting with this day, not knowing too much about how I was going to even start this day. But I say, hey, the clock is ticking. You're here. This day is here. Full of whatever you do, every breath that you take that is given to you, your breath is given to you. You try to use it to produce a constructive result, or you are not on your job for whatever puts you here. Constructive results. Every black person should have that in mind on the planet right now. This day, every move that I make is going to produce a constructive result. Everything that I say to someone is going to produce a constructive result, or I'm not going to say it unless I perceive in advance. When I say this, it's going to have a constructive result to whomever I'm saying it to, including myself. It's going to produce a constructive result, or I'm not going to say one word of it, period. And I'm going to keep doing this every day. Every day is this day. That's the only one you have is that day, whatever day it is. That day, constructive result. Every minute of that day. Every second of that day. As best I possibly can. That's what I'm here for. That's it. Mr. Bobby? Mr. Bobby, are you there?
Hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, very good. Okay. All righty. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Okay. This day and constructive results. Don't forget, when you call in and give your name to the call screener, please give your name to the call screener. And I would also like to ask, I have to do this every week, but you can make a comment. Yes, we like that. But make it brief so that Mr. Fuller can understand your question and answer it. A lot of times people get on there and they get to rambling on, and there might be 5 or 6, maybe 7 questions in there, and we lose perspective of what you are trying to say so that Mr. Fuller can address whatever it is that you are trying to say. So I say this every week, please be brief. So be brief. Okay, with that being said, let's go to Milwaukee, and we will start off with Corey. Let's see here, over here. Okay, Corey, you are on. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, I was reading in the compensatory code book under the area of politics. You wrote that according to the evidence and based on compensatory counter-racist logic, the tragic arrangement is the result of the lack of the will of white people and the lack of the ability of non-white people to do what's necessary to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Mr. Fuller, is it easier to develop the will to replace the system, or is it easier to develop the abilities to replace the system of white supremacy with justice?
Well, you have to have the will to get the ability. If you're going to ride a bicycle, you have to want to ride the bicycle. The bicycle's just sitting there. You're looking at the bicycle. But you sit there and just look at it and look at it and look at it and never get on it. You have to have the will to get up off the curb and walk over to the bicycle and get on the bicycle. You have to have a will to do that. Now, when you get on it, if you've never been on one, you're going to maybe fall a couple of times. So you have to be real cautious. And just like a baby getting out of a crib or learning to walk, you learn the bicycle the same way, how to ride. The baby falls down trying to walk and cries about it, but the baby tries again. The baby has to have the will to do that. So in answer to the question, yes, you have the will to do something, and that will motivates you to try to do it, and you keep trying. You fail, but you haven't really failed as long as you keep trying. That's just the process of learning how to do what you're trying to do.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's all.
All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Corey.
It's a simple formula. It's a formula for everything. Mm-hmm. You know, you just keep trying. That's how it gets done. Keep trying to drive the car. Keep trying to sweep the floor with the broom. You never swept the floor before. But you got to pick the broom up and start trying.
Yes.
And little by little, you become an expert at sweeping the floor. And sweep it real fast, get it done, and the floor is clean. Because you know how to use a broom. But you didn't always know that. But you got the ability, because you kept trying. You had the will to keep trying. Same way with solving the race problem.
Okay. Thank you, Corey. Yes, Mr. Fuller, that is correct. I was thinking as you were speaking about Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption, he had the will to get out of that. So he had to get out of the prison. He had to figure that out. It took him a long time, but he figured it out, every angle that he could possibly think of to make his escape. he had the will to do that. Very, very good. Okay, let's go to Atlanta. True. Let me see if I can move it over here. True. Okay, True. Good morning. You're on with Mr. Fuller. You're on, Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please, with your question. There's a lot of background noise in there. We can't hear you. Go ahead with your question.
Oh, yes. Is it me?
Yes, there's a lot of background noise.
Oh, okay. Okay, this is Truth again. So I called last time and I asked the question, was it not more constructive to replace the use of white supremacy with just the simple term racism? And the host and Neely responded to me, you know, like their mind was telling them that this is a little measly, weak woman. So my question is, the previous man just said, which one is easier, the will or the ability? And Neely responded, the will, which he said is on who he's calling himself, the black people. But he's saying, claiming that the ones causing this is the white supremacists. And like I was saying, y'all's response to me was, if you do not understand white supremacy, you won't understand racism. And what I'm saying to you, extra fleshly motherfuckers, you don't understand white supremacy.
Man, we don't use that kind of language. We don't use that kind of language. We don't use that kind of language in this program. We don't use that kind of language. You know, you can call back, but don't use that language. We just can't have that. Let's go to Darnell. I'm sorry, she was cut off.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, let's go to Darnell in New York. Darnell, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Darnell, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Yeah, your connection is still not good. Tell you what, when you get your connection together, okay, you got it together?
Hello?
Darnell? Okay, I'm going to put you on hold until you get that together. We had that problem last week. Let's see if we can do better this week. Let's go to Jamal. Jamal in Greensboro, you're on.
Yes. Greetings to all, Greensburg, Pleasant Hills. I'm going to take my answer off the air. Mr. Fuller, do you believe that there are some so-called non-white people that have successfully been able to not be under the system of white supremacy, that they have pulled it off? Why or why not? That's it.
I heard a lot of static, and I think the question is, well, how did the non-white people who are not under white supremacy get to be not under white supremacy? I think that's the question. Was that the question?
Yeah, the question is, do you believe that they exist, that they have successfully pulled it off? Why or why not?
Somehow I'm getting some static.
Yeah, there is a lot of static in there. Jamal, I don't know if it, well, evidently, I tell you what, why don't you back away from the phone a little bit and ask the question, because there is so much static in there.
Okay, can you hear me clearly now?
Oh, yeah, that's much better. Yes, okay.
Okay.
Now, the question
I'll take my
is what?
answer off air. Do you believe that there are some so-called non-white people that have successfully pulled off not being under the system of white supremacy? Why or why not?
I don't believe there are any non-white people who are not under the system of white supremacy. Because if you're non-white, then the white supremacists, who are the most powerful people on the planet, according to the evidence that I have seen, have said that if you're non-white, you're subject to me. I'm a white person who believes in white supremacy, and I have proven that I am what I believe in all areas of activity. You're a non-white person, you're under me in economics, you're under me in education, entertainment, labor, law, politics. I have more power than you in politics, in religion, in sex. I determine what sex is and what it isn't, minute by minute. If I change, the definition of sex every 5 minutes, you can't stop me, and you'll go along with it, because you know you're better. And it's the same in war. I decide who's going to fight who can get away with it and who won't. Do you know anybody else who can overrule me other than all of our Creator, whatever created all of us? That's how the white supremacists speak. See, in other words, they don't back down. They say, hey, I don't lose an argument. Because one thing, I can hurt you more than you can hurt me. That's a simple formula. That's proof of it. Who's the boss? I can always hurt you a whole lot more than you can hurt me if you're a person of color and I'm white. You don't overrule me because as an individual you can, but you better get stepping. Because if you got to outrun all the other white supremacists who are coming after you, you got no place to go. You got no place to go. Because every place that you go, I dominate it. Every place. There's nowhere you can hide with your black self on this planet or anywhere else on another planet. Because if you get to another planet, I got to take you there because you don't know how. None of you. I got to show you everything. That's the voice of the white supremacists. And now that's either true or false. You look around and see if it's true, that it actually is that way. Or, if it's false, that'll prove itself. And the white supremacists are real good, unlike black people, at proving what they say, particularly when it comes to who's got muscle and who ain't. They're the experts at that. They see to it in advance. Unless I have been grossly misinformed based on evidence. I don't think I have.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Hey, let's pause here. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Boffy, and we are absolutely delighted that you have chosen to listen to the program today. Now, be a participant in the program, then you have to dial this number, which is 516-453-9921. And when you do it, you make contact with the call screener. Please, ma'am, please, sir, be sure to give them your name so that I could possibly correctly pronounce your name over the air so they will know who we're speaking with. So you can do that. Please be brief in your comment or question so that Mr. Fuller can fully understand and answer your question or suggestion to the best of his ability. could you do that? You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com to ask your question to Mr. Fuller. Now, I cannot promise that it will be read today, but at some point in the programs that we have, it will come up on the computer, and then I'll read it, and then Mr. Fuller will address that. Okay. And lastly, you can also contact this show. Well, not the show, actually. You can join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. When you do that, you want to go to where it says programs, and then you punch that or hit that, click that. I think this is the appropriate term. And then the Produce Justice show comes up. You hit that, and then the chat room is available for your option. You can do that, and you can join the chat. And wow, and that was something, and all those comments are in there so you can see what's up. Usually there are some good comments in there, well thought of. So you may want to do that. And again, all the books and materials that will be spoken of on this show and written by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. Very good. So you may want to do that. And again, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Okay, I got your message, Mr. Robert. Thank you very much. Okay, let me see here. My phone went blank. Well, I tell you, computer technology is something else. Okay, let's go to the Gmails. And this comes from Gary. He says this, Mr. Fuller. He says, Dear Mr. Fuller, how come if a black person does something bad, they get punished to the fullest extent, but when a white person does the same thing or worse, they get a slap on the wrist, if that?
That's the question?
Yes.
White supremacy. That's what white supremacy is about. Proving itself. Each and every minute, each and every day throughout the entire universe. That's what's supposed to happen to a black person in the system of white supremacy. Expect it at all times. You don't get justice. That's a contradiction. You can't have white supremacy and justice. White supremacy is about producing non-justice. And you are the target. If you're a person of color, black, brown, red, yellow, you're not white, you're supposed to be punished. Punished for what? For being born non-white. That's a crime. According to whom? The white supremacists. That's what we're talking about. Why get rid of something and it's not bothering you? This program is about getting rid of the system of white supremacy and replacing it with justice. Justice means what? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's the compensatory definition for the word justice. It's not supposed to be any justice for anybody with color in their skin in the system of white supremacy. Not any, at any time, under any circumstance. It's designed to do just the opposite. See to it that everything about you is going to be lacking in anything of constructive value unless it's supportive of the system of white supremacy, which is designed deliberately to be a system of mistreatment of people of color. That's what it's designed to do. It's not an accident or something on the side of something else or part of something else. That's the whole show. That's the reason for its being. The white supremacists say that all the time. I'm here. to make your life nothing but pure hell and have fun doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody likes to have fun. That's how I have fun. And been having it, and will continue to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of you are trying to deny that it's even true. It's you're practically saying I don't even exist. That it's just you black people on the planet. And white people are just kind of like ghosts passing by, but they ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Definitely ain't got nothing to do with me. And I have everything to do with you. You won't even be born if I decide you're not going to be.
Yes.
You don't know how to do anything except what I tell you. When you get up and go to work, who do you go to work for? Wake up and smell the coffee, Negro.
Okay. Alrighty. Before we get back in the phone call, this is from California. Rasamin says this. Mr. Fuller, why are some black people so much against the term white supremacy that they act angry and hateful toward black people who use that term when speaking about solving the race problem? Thank you, Rasamin.
Well, what black people have told me when I've asked, that's just a question. Why do black people object to the term white supremacy? And when I have asked that question to black people who say they object to it, they say because it ain't supreme. Then I ask the next question, well, who is? And they say, God is supreme. And I say, well, the white supremacists say that. The white supremacists never said that they were God. The white supremacists have always said, God told me to have domain over you dark people. And I'm just doing what God wants me to do. And if you obey your master, which is me, white, a white person is your master if you're black, what's the problem? I'm supposed to be your master. God assigned me to be your master. So slaves, obey your master. Duh. What's the problem? That's what the white supremacists have been saying all along. So when black people turned and asked Neely Fuller about it, I say, I'm just saying what they're saying, and so far they're proving it. I don't know who told them. Now, they haven't proven that God told them that, not to me anyway. But they have proven it in function. So I just call it what it is. Do they tell me what to do? Yes. Who else tells me what to do? When I look around, on every job I've ever been on, I've had what you call black supervisors, chest all stuck out. I'm your supervisor. But then I say, who is the supervisor? Super advisor. Who is your supervisor? When I ask that question, every time, it's always someone white. Every time. Even when I go through 15 of them. When I finally get to where the throne is, the kings and queens, they're always white.
Always.
Well, I got to go and check. That's what the black supervisor says. Oh, well, I will get right back to you, sir. And I have to go and check. Check who? Check with what? Got to check with Mr. Charlie, that's who. We used to have a saying for it. You got to check with Charlie. Go down the hall and check with Charlie, Get an appointment to check with Charlie, by the way. Can't just walk in on him. Tell when he calls.
Okay, wait a minute, because I lost my screen here. See if I can get it back. There we go. Boy, I tell you that. I want to say the gremlins, but whoo! All righty. Not funny. Okay, let's do this. Darnell, we're getting ready to get to you. Let's see if we can get to you here. Because, I mean, we're having some problems. Okay, Darnell. See if we can get to you. Darnell, can you hear me? Not good, Darnell. Okay. We tried again. It may not be you. I don't know what's going on with this system. Let's try this. Tess! You ready? All right, let's go, my brother. Tess, see. Okay, Tess,
Good
you're on
morning.
with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead. Yes.
First, I want to thank Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby, Robert, Sharon, Moonpie, and all those involved in making the show available to us. As well, a thank you to the listeners and those in the chat room. Mr. Fuller, the other day ago, I was looking at a flagpole, and I seen the POW flag, and it has an image of an individual with their head down and looking disheveled. I wanted to know if we are in a war, what is the name of the war that we're currently in, the non-white people and the white supremacists of this world? Thank you.
The white supremacists declared war on the people of color when white supremacy began. That's what it was. That's what it was all about. If you're white, you make war on people of color. And someone invented something called white supremacy. That's what they called it. And it turned out to be the most powerful idea for dominating and mistreating people so far, according to the evidence, ever conceived. You had all kinds of, tribalism for sure, and still have it. People fighting, and even right down to what you call the family. Family feuds, they call them. And everybody, all over the planet. Tribal fights, family fights, just people opposing each other in different ways. But when it comes to the master of domination and hurting people and helping people, it's the white supremacists. The evidence shows that. Now, individuals have come up with things like inventions, like Dr. George Washington Carver, who had been a slave. He invented things. But what happened? The white supremacists took a look at it, said, you are my slave, so everything that you have, everything that you do with your inventions, you belong to me, so everything that you invent belongs to me. George. And so that's what it means. See, when I'm on the air like this, I'm not saying that black people as individuals are not smart. Millions of black people are smart in a lot of things and can show white people things that white people don't know anything about. But they all come under the system of white supremacy. That umbrella is always there, up to now. And that means that the white supremacists just walk in and say, oh, well, you did this and you have that, and that is really nice. You did an excellent job. You did this and you did that, and you're bragging about it among your own people, but when I show up, I take it all. Why? Because I am your master. That's why. It ain't personal, it's business. We're a gangster operation. We wait for you to invent something or do whatever you're going to do that's worth doing. And we look at it, and if we like it, we take it. And you can't stop me. Why? Because you're too dumb to know that, how to do it. And really, even con yourself into thinking that I'm not doing it. And argue with other black people about whether or not I'm doing it. But you don't argue with me. You don't argue with me about who's supreme. You argue with other black people about that. You can have all the arguments you want. Y'all can kill each other. Call each other names. Call each other MFs, whatever. But you don't argue with me. You don't get in my face with that ghetto nonsense, because I made the ghetto, just like I made you into going from a person to a what? Negro. A Negro is not a person. He's a thing.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. Tess, thank you for your call. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Okay, let's see here. From the Gmails, let's see here. I'm going to say that this person said anonymous, so we will call the name out. But anyway, here's the writing. It says, Grand Rising, Mr. Fuller. Reading the supplementary reference book of the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, I found the definition of the word negress. Number one, any female person classified as, quote, black, end of quote, who engages in sexual intercourse with a white person. I'm one negress according to the code. My question is there any word that describes a black male who engages in sexual intercourse with a white person? If not, could negress be applicable also for black males? If not, why not? Black females don't have many options in the relationship, or a better saying, reproduction market, because many black males are being killed, involved with drugs and alcohol, and in greater confinement. So when they can provide, they prefer to reproduce with white women or other non-white females with other features like fine hair and lighter skin, etc. What options would you suggest for black females who are despised around the globe based on the explanation below? Be blessed, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, if I understand the question, if, the question of black males and black females equal in the system of white supremacy, the answer is yes, if that's the question. It was a kind of a convoluted question. It doesn't make any difference what are the labels you might apply. That's the label that applies. All victims of racism are equal, by whatever name you want to call them. You can call them different types of names, whatever names you can come up with. But to the white supremacists, you're all just a bunch of, servants. How about that? For me, you're my servants. That's a nice, polite name. Actually, we don't need all the rest of the names. Words are just tools to express, hopefully, what the truth is. And the truth is, if you're a non-white person on the planet in 2023, the year 2023, which is what this is, you are a servant to the white supremacists, a category of very powerful people, the most powerful. I can't find anybody more powerful than them. What they say goes all over the world. They say, hey, we can hurt you more than you can hurt me. That's the bottom line. So we decide what you can and cannot do if you are a person of color. It ain't personal, it's business. And we're the biggest business on the planet. Maybe not somewhere else. On some other planet, somebody might show us a thing or two. But nobody here has proven that they can show us anything except how to bow down.
Okay.
They're proving it. That's not Neely Fuller. When I say it, a lot of people get angry about it. I get angry about it a long time ago. But I stopped being angry. I just said, hey, is this true or false? Fuller, tell yourself the truth. Is this true or false?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's true. That's who I answer to. And when I look around me, I see everybody else answering to it. So this is not false. I don't argue about it. People jump all over me about it, but I say, hey, don't ask me if it's true or false. Or don't argue with me about it. Argue with white people. See how far you get.
Okay.
And then, hey, if you get very far with it, come and let me know how you did it, because I want to do it. All you magic Negroes, okay?
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Got a question coming up about the book, but before we get to the book, and I think we may get to the book in the second hour, but you need to speak about your book, why you wrote it, the beginning statement, if you do not understand racism, all that. Why did you do all this, Mr. Fuller? Speaking about your book.
To try to come up with a formula for replacing the system of white supremacy, the very system that I'm talking about, with justice. And I say there's a code for everything. The white supremacists follow a white code, or a code. You can just call it a code. A code does what? It gets things done. That's when you know it's a code. Driving a car, it's a formula or code for that. Otherwise, you're not driving the car. The white supremacists understand that. They don't do nothing that doesn't work. Unlike black people who keep doing the same thing over and over again, knowing full well before we start doing it that it ain't going to work. But we're trained to be like that, doing things that don't work. Work for whom? Work for anybody if they're doing it. But we just do it, do it, and do it well. And sometimes we explain it by saying it's our tradition. It's black people's tradition. My grandfather did it. Well, your grandfather? Stop and think about that. Your grandfather, somebody started, Miss Harriet Tubman say, wait a minute, I had a grandfather. Maybe I shouldn't be doing what grandfather did. Maybe I should be trying to get out of this situation. And in answer to the question, that's what the code book is about. I'm not trying to down black people. We're already down. I'm down. This book, the textbook for victims of white supremacy, is supposed to help us to not get from under the system. It's to eliminate the system of white supremacy. And with white people, naturally, cooperation. But if they don't want to cooperate, we're supposed to nudge them into a position where they will, because that's why? Because that's the only way out. Now we are going to slaughter each other, and we'll get the worst of that. We'll wind up getting slaughtered if we try to do it with violence now. I mean wholesale violence. Good luck with that. Or we can make some type of compromise, because that's how it's going to wind up anyway. And that's what life on this planet or in this universe is about. It's you take what you should take, and you give what you should give, and you have balance between people, a thing called justice. So I have a theory. Justice can be produced. You can get all of the things that you get without the system of white supremacy. I believe that's possible to achieve it. You don't need a racial system. You just need a system of justice. It's a little slower. You have to give a little more consideration to details rather than just brush past a lot of things like the white supremacists do. They just glorify things. I mean, that's a way of brushing past problems. Well, just get rid of some people. That's why they glorify murder. And they get black people to glorify murder. There's a lot of black people out there right now looking forward to killing somebody. Where do we get that? From the white supremacists. They look forward to doing that. They're not happy unless they're killing somebody. Now, when you look at actually this thing called killing people killing people, that's easy to do. Patching somebody up who has third-degree burns, now that's difficult. That requires somebody to be concerned about life. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm trying to do with the textbooks of white supremacy. Get us all to be concerned about every other person and every other creature and every other thing that whatever created all of us should be concerned about. And black people who think like that should stay that course and stop squabbling among ourselves about how to do it. Just try to figure out how to do it better. All of us, because we haven't done it. And the white supremacists have no intention of doing it. Because what? They love murder. When they get through murdering black people, they murder each other and write stories about it and have TV programs on it endlessly. That's why we all wound up in this kind of mess. Sophisticated mess, but it's still mess. The textbook for victims of white supremacy says, enough already. Let's get rid of it. Let's all, white and non-white, get rid of it and come up with a formula for doing so, at least for the black people. Say, well, if white people don't want to do it, we're going to try to do our best to do it. The textbook for victims of white supremacy is supposed to help us do it. That's all.
Yes. Somebody had written that why aren't non-white people with the means to buy millions of copies of the United Independent Compensatory Code or the ability to compensate you, Mr. Fuller, for uploading his book on the Internet for little or no cost? Mr. Fuller's works should be distributed worldwide as soon as possible. So I'm taking that to mean that it seems like there may be some illegal activity in terms of uploading your book and for their profit and not for you, Mr. Fuller, your book's being distributed unauthorized by you. Now, would you know anything about that, or have you heard anything about that, or what?
I've heard plenty of it all down through the years. The lady that helped me produce the book, and she was the only one at the time that I had to do it in a hurry, and the book has a lot of errors in it, but she got disgusted with me and said she's not going to ever help me to do anything anymore. And it was, I didn't get angry about it and all like that. I mean, I was in a desperate situation to get something out, and but she got angry with me because she said that a lot of people were just distorting what I was saying and taking parts of it and attaching it to something else that had nothing to do with what I was saying, and just misusing me in every kind of way. And she said, and because you won't do anything about it or won't help me to put them where they need to be, I'm going to stop helping you. And she did. And so there are a lot of errors, in the books. People who have noticed things, have noticed that. And I say that, and I'm saying it now. Yes, there are a lot of errors. It's one of the worst written on account of that volumes for the price that is being charged ever volumes or books or textbooks ever produced in the history of book writing. And even the way that I wrote it, the things that I said, and I could have said it a whole lot better, but I was in a rush. I had to get something out. I'm getting up in age. These books, that last one's the 2016 version. That was 2016. And time is passing fast. I had to get it out fast because I had just a small window of opportunity where I had a few people and a little bit of money available to do it. And so that was the result of that. But yes, I am being misused, but what else is new? Everybody of color is being misused, and we misuse each other. I mean, that goes with the territory. I'm trying to do all I can to stop it, but, you know, what do I know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that concludes the first hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. So those of you who have to go, we thank you for listening, and hopefully you can be with us on this second hour. We made a lot of mistakes today, but we are definitely trying to get better. So if you're going to stay, because we have another hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller coming up and commencing in about 5 seconds. Okay, welcome back to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, and I have to admit we are having a little line issue, but we'll try to work through that. You can call this number, 516-453-9921. And when you do make contact, please be sure, ma'am, please be sure, sir, to give your name to the call screener so that I can properly give you an introduction. And hopefully you can get through. Man, oh, man. You can also, if you're a first-time caller, please be sure to indicate to the call screener that you are a first-time caller, and we have something set up for you for that. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And when I receive it, usually I'm able to give you a little symbol that I have received it, and it will be read in at an appropriate time. I cannot tell you when, but when it comes up, it will be read. It gets in some kind of order, and then the machine kicks it out or whatever, and then I'm able to read it. Sometimes if it's if it's in there for a long time, the machine starts deleting it. I don't know how long it takes, but anyway, we'll work on that. And you can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. And when you do that, make sure that you want to go to programs, and the Produce Justice Show is what you want. Click on that bad boy, and then you go to the very end of it, and then the chat room icon is there. You can get into the chat. Please, ma'am, please, sir, do not use the chat room to ask me a question to ask Mr. Fuller, because it's just not going to happen, Captain. I'm not going to do that today. Because once you start that avalanche, it will not stop. So you have to use either the Gmail or the phone calls, and the phone calls come first, provided that the gremlins or whatever is out there is prohibiting some of the calls from getting through. Most of our callers who have been with us for a long time refer to them as the usual suspects. So getting in play. And why is that? Because Mr. Fuller's word is getting out. It's having some effect. But unfortunately, some are trying to take advantage of it. And if you heard the end of the last hour, you know what Mr. Fuller has to deal with as he tries to get this out, producing justice. So call that number, 516-453-9921, and we can go on from there. Okay, let's see here. There's a question from Dominique. Says this: Mr. Fuller, on page 206 of the revised edition, it is written that we are to call a person by whatever name or title a person requests to be called. However, nowadays, many people are requesting that they be referred to by their, quote, preferred pronouns, end of quote, meaning that a biological male asks that they be referred to as she/her, and a biological female wants to be called he or him. This appears to be part of the sexual confusion strategy, but Should these requests be honored? Thank you.
Yes. You call people by the names or titles that they want to be called. And let the chips fall where they may. But that's according to the code. That's in the textbook. Always call people by the names and or titles that that person wants to be called. If a person says, I'm an elephant, you call the person, well, that's your name and your title. Call me elephant. Don't call me nothing else. Or you're disrespecting me, or whatever term they want to use. So you say, well, the code calls for me to be courteous at all times. So a part of being courteous, that's one of the 10 stops. Stop being discourteous. And stop name calling. You have to always call people by the names or titles that they want to be called. So I say, how do I say good morning to you? So you just ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Say, good morning, elephant. And say it just like that. Say it just like that. Or you are not showing courtesy toward me. You say, show courtesy at all times. Always be courteous. Call people by the names and titles they want to be called full of. That's what you said that everybody should do. So what are you going to do? Are you going to call me elephant or not? I'm going to call you elephant. Do I say sir or ma'am? No, just call me elephant. No sir or ma'am or nothing. You ain't supposed to know nothing about that. That ain't none of your business. Person might say that to me. So I say, well, okay. And is there anything else that you want me to know to call you? That's what I'm going to call you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you change it, you can tell me that, and I'll call you by whatever you have changed it to. I mean, hey, what is that doesn't do anything with me. That's all about you. So I'm showing you the courtesy that I said that I would show.
Yes, sir.
So be whatever you want to be. I call you that, and that's it. That's the end of that. We can go and talk about something else.
For clarity's sake, just so we can be sure, we can be clear, because you always say we don't want to be confused, we want to be clear. If you're speaking with, if you're speaking with a person, or a male or female, and they decide that they want you to address them as Mr. or Miss MF or Mr. B or Miss B or some derogatory name, according to the code, what you just said, that is the way that we are supposed to address them?
The person dictates how. Every person should have, one of the first things that the white supremacists take is what they choose to call you. So they call you, so anytime a non-white person or a white person says, call me this, because white people make sure that you call them what they want to be called. So the code just says, doesn't make any difference anyway. Just satisfy that person's need. The person needs to be called by whatever name or title. If a person on a job says, regardless of the other supervisors, even though I'm not a supervisor, I want you to call me a supervisor. That's a title.
I understand.
So you say, but you're not a supervisor. You say, well, I say I want to be called supervisor. So I say, okay, Mr. Jones, I'll call you supervisor. And that's whether the person is white or non-white, or anything, male or female, or anything, any other, whatever. Just call them by whatever they want to be called. And if somebody else overhear you, if a person says, call me Super MF.
Yeah.
Say, right here in front of everybody? Yes. In front of everybody or whatnot. I say, well, when I call you that, I'm going to try to say it in as low key as I possibly can. Because I don't want people to think that that's what I'm calling you and you don't want to be called that. I don't want that kind of confusion on me. So do you mind that when I get ready to address you, when I come over to your desk with a bunch of papers in my hand and whatnot, and you say, call me Super MF, do you mind if I kind of whisper it to you?
Okay.
Mr. Super MF, could you sign these sheets so I can take them down the hall to Miss Jones? And that's what I'll do. But I'll make that request. Now, when I do this, I'm just going to be talking to you. So anytime I address you by that title, I'm going to do it in a whisper. Do you mind that? Because I don't want other people to look up. And, you know, this does not produce what? A constructive result.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So keep that in mind. I started off this program today saying every move that you make, every word that you say, should produce
a constructive result. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this day.
That has the effect of a constructive result. Nothing ever non-constructive. Never, ever. From this day forward, never say anything that is non-constructive.
Yeah.
Never
not
do
yesterday.
anything.
Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but this day.
This day, starting with this day and this right now, and from now on for the rest of the time you breathe, never say anything that doesn't produce a constructive result.
Gotcha.
All constructive results.
All righty.
You know.
Okay.
And never do anything that does not produce a constructive result. Never, don't have a conversation with anybody that doesn't produce a constructive result. In fact, the definition of conversation means it produces constructive results. That's the difference between a conversation and an argument.
Okay.
Arguments are not designed to produce constructive results.
All righty. Let's do this. Let's see if we have these gremlins under control, whatever you call them. Third time's a charm, Darnell. Let's see if we did it. Darnell.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Hey, we got you. I don't know what's the matter with this thing, but welcome aboard. We got you. Go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller.
It's the usual suspects at work, you know.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. Fuller, my question for you today is, why is it important for a victim of white supremacy to have a code of thought, speech, and action in the system of white supremacy?
Well, I'll answer that question again. I think that you're the same caller. I'm not sure.
No.
You have called a number of times and asked that same question. Is that true?
Well, it might be an important question.
Why do you think it's important to have a code? Okay, I'll answer it again.
Yeah,
Yes. Because everything that works, anything, whether for better or for worse, depending on what your intention is, has a code. When you do something over and over again and it works, like they have something called a barcode in a grocery store. Why do they have that? Because they say this works better than somebody guessing when you come up to the register about what something costs and all like this and what's the difference between this and that. Just run it through the barcode and the line will move faster. Okay, we found that out by trial and error than a person having to figure out what everything costs, holding up each item. This can of beans costs this and that. I think this other can costs this, that, and the other. Go back and check and on the shelf, or go over there and check with the supervisor and see how much this costs. So somebody invented something called a barcode, and they found that, hey, this is codified. It works, and it works every time. And you get the exact same answer for that can of beans, that brand of beans, that size of a can, and all that. That's all barcoded. And so when you, what they call swipe it, and it comes up on the screen how much it is. And the line moves fast, not like in the days before they had it, where the line moves slow enough now but it really would move slow if someone hadn't invented what you call a barcode. And then you have a code for, a car code for that matter. That key in your ignition has a code. See, this is the incorrect key. So a person that knows about keys says, yeah, it's an incorrect key, but I know what code this key is, because I have a list of codes for all of the keys. So for this particular vehicle. So, and I can make a duplicate if you lose one or something. I found out what the code is for that particular key for your particular vehicle. So in answer to the question, codes are efficient in answer to the question. And black people need to be able to interact with each other and with white people in a manner that is at least efficient. In doing what? In doing the things that you think need to be done. You get more efficiency out of not name calling, for instance. Not calling white people various names like crackers and peckerwoods, and I'm doing that now because these are some of the names I have been told not to do it by anybody. So you don't do that, even when you're angry or anything like that. Everybody's still Mr. and Mrs. and whatever they want to be called by their names, because the white people are on the planet. We don't want to do glorify anything that doesn't have constructive value. And this is with white people for sure, along with non-white people. We try to be what? Something that nobody is. Civilized. There's no such thing as civilization in the system of white supremacy. It doesn't work. That word doesn't come up. That's not true. There's no such thing as white civilization or black civilization. There is no civilization in recorded history. We say that, well, we had civilizations, back in ancient history. None that I've read about. Why? Because you had people killing people. That cancels out civilization right there. I don't know of any time in recorded history that somebody somewhere didn't kill somebody somewhere. Willfully and deliberately, what you call murder. So forget that civilization. Ancient civilizations and Black History Month, or white people talking about Greek history and Roman history. All that killing that went on and killing, and not only that, going over to the Colosseum, killing people for fun. And you call that a civilization? See, the code is all about wiping all that out. Forget about civilizations. You ain't never had it. Nowhere. But we should be trying to produce it for the first time in the history of the universe. And black people should be, like I heard that Gandhi said it, that black people are some of the worst acting people in the world, kind of hinted that way. And he said, but they are going to be the people who produce peace when nobody else did it.
Wow, I didn't know that Gandhi said that. Okay.
Yes, that's what I heard. I read it somewhere in, I think it was in a book called Conversations with Nehru. Or it was in a Ebony magazine article about 50 years ago or more. All right? That was the source of it. I've been trying to track down the source of where Gandhi said that. He was asked that question directly. What do you think the purpose of the Negro is? And Gandhi thought for a moment, and he said, I think the purpose of the Negro is to bring peace to the world. That stunned me. at the time that I read it. I said, that came from Gandhi? You know, I didn't think that the word Negro was even on his radar. All right? That was my reaction.
Yes, sir.
It was many years ago. I mean, I think I was a teenager when I heard that.
Okay.
And I think the source of it was an Ebony magazine article, or it was a book called Conversations with Nehru.
Conversations with Nehru. Okay. All righty. All right, Darnell, thank you so much. And maybe we can get a hold of those, the usual suspects. Thank you, Darnell. This is VGQ from, I'm just going to say Raju. Says this, this is VGQ. He says, a function of left brain hemisphere being used for destructive results by the Eurocentric mentality everyone conditioned with. Identifying as a member of false classification tool race, this makes the individual racist. Practicing racism, the only scientific functioning form of racism, is white supremacy. Everyone basically keeping it going while opposing it with the Eurocentric mind every second. Remember, it is a political necessity to keep everyone maladjusted. How can you do the correct thing when you don't recognize who you are metaphysically? Page 24 at the top. Two major problems. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for being on your mission. Okay, VGQ. Okay, being on your mission. I don't know about the left brain, right brain function, but that's what they said. So we'll just have to leave it at there. You care to comment on that, Mr. Fuller, before we move on?
No, people should take it into consideration. In fact, all of the callers, including some of the callers that make, you might say, vulgar remarks and all like that, take into consideration what they said. And as the code says, they said what they said. Think about what people say and see if you can do what with it. Produce a constructive result.
A constructive result. Okay. This is from South Africa. I'm not even going to, well, Lingwizi, I'll just put it like that. Yeah. There's more to his name, but anyway, from South Africa. He says this, Mr. Fuller, I hope that you are constructive this morning. In one of the films on your list, Easy Rider, a young Jack Nicholson talks to two lead actors about an alien race of highly intelligent beings who control the world. Now, according to the code, should I assume that he is referring to the white supremacists? Enjoy. Best regards from Durban, South Africa. Should he assume that, Mr. Fuller?
He could, because I had nothing to do with making the movie. So actually, he'd have to practically track down probably everybody who had something to do with, or the key people who had something to do with the script, where Jack Nicholson said that, talking about the Venusians and alien people who had been in contact with people here on the planet Earth. And in a movie script, whoever wrote the script would have to be tracked down and say, what did they have in mind? What was the message? And because I couldn't answer that, but I say that that's something to think about. Or there are people who are out there somewhere. And like Jack Nicholson said in the movie, are those people like us, except they're more advanced, that they don't have leaders. And that's something that I said, that because he said every man is his own leader. Now, that's something I have in the textbook. And I wrote that before I ever saw that movie. That, because I say that's what every person should be. That's why every person should have a code. The code leads you. You don't have people leading people. You have a code that you follow. Codes are reliable. People are not. People mislead people in the direction that it should be going. That happens every day, all day, everywhere. People misleading people. By misleading, we mean taking them in a direction they should not be going.
Right. Okay. Black Tony says this, that Mr. Fuller, does it surprise you that the banks are collapsing, or could this be a distraction for something else? Black Tony. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
I don't know. That's what the code requires me to say when I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about how banks operate, Wall Street. For years, I've been trying to figure it out. I've been trying to get an answer to what capitalism is. We talk about capitalism all the time. Last night I was thinking about it. All these years I've been thinking, that when I was in the Army, I used to make talks. They assigned me to make talks, talking about being anti-communist. And that communism was a terrible thing. And all the time that I was talking about it, assigned to talk about it, I didn't know what I was saying. And I still don't, because I don't know what communism really is. And I certainly don't know the thing that I am told that I am supposed to be a supporter of, and I'm supposed to be that, is capitalism. I'm supposed to be a capitalist. But I don't know what people mean when they say that, even to this day. I've read definitions in dictionaries and communism, capitalism, socialism. Those are supposed to be the big three. But I get confused the more that I read. And that's the truth. I get confused. And what exactly is capitalism? And what I have seen, and people can correct me because I don't know. But I say, since I am told, Neely Fuller, you are supposed to be a supporter of capitalism. I've been told that here in the Northwestern Hemisphere. Now, if I'm supposed to be a supporter of capitalism, I'm supposed to know what it is. And they say, well, it's this and that and the other. And I say, well, how do you get to be a capitalist? That's what I really want to know, because I understand that that's a wonderful thing to be. And then when you are one, you got a lot going for you when you are an actual capitalist. I say, well, that's what I want to be, something that everybody should be, because I'm told this over and over and over again. But then when I ask, how do you get to be one, everybody gets stingy about taking me by the hand and guaranteeing me that I'm going to be what they say I ought to be, and die for it, if necessary. Hey, you got to fight these communists. I'll put you in a uniform and make you fight against those communists. Why? Because they are a threat to capitalism, and you are supposed to be for capitalism. But nobody takes me by the hand and walks me through being one. I want to be one. They say a capitalist has plenty of everything, for one thing. That's their code. I say, well, that sounds like something I'd like to be. Everything that, that I just touch it and it turns to gold. That's what a capitalist is. Oh, boy. Why would I fight that? Yeah. Yeah, I'm anti-communist. I mean, if that's what it winds up being, they say communists have a whole lot of nothing. That's how it was explained to me. They say, Paul, I'm going to make it simple for you. Being a communist means you have plenty of nothing. And being a capitalist, you have plenty of everything. Well,
Oh.
hey, that's a no-brainer. But can somebody show me, walk me through all this Wall Street mess and all like that, so that
Yes,
when
sir.
I come out the other end of that building or whatever it is, I'm now a capitalist. I got bona fide papers proving that I'm a capitalist, and I got the money to prove it. But that ain't happening with me. So, you know, what are people playing games with me or what? Talking about the bank is closing. I don't want to have nothing to do with all that. I just want the money.
I just want the money.
Where's the money? Show me the money.
Yeah,
that
I've
seems
heard
to
that
be an
before.
expression that kind of goes around. They say that's being capital.
All right. Coming up next, conversation Mr. Fuller had with the Sarge. The white man's anus is a new black vagina. Wow. And more about how you can purchase a book. All that coming up next here on the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Speaking about that, you are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and we do thank you as we enter in the last quarter of the show. 30 more minutes, 30 more, M-O. Now, to get in contact with the show, if the usual suspects are not doing their thing, and trust me, the buzzards of Hinkley, Ohio are coming. Anyone in Ohio knows about that one. But we're having a little issues there, but that's okay. We work through that as best as we can. Some calls get through and some don't, for whatever the reason. Anyway, if you can get through, call this number, 516-453-9921. And when you do that, if you're going to listen to the show, you can just listen to it. But if you have a question or comment, just push the number 1 button, and hopefully it'll get through, and I'll get it. Please give your name to the call screener so that I can properly give you an introduction, and we'll see how it goes. Please give your name to there. Here we go. Well, there's some action up there. I don't know who that is, but anyway. You can also do this. You can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com, and hopefully I will get that. Now, it will not be read today. Oh, no, not today. But on a show coming up, it will be read. As you well know, those of you who follow the show know that the callers come first. The calls come first. And as you also know, Mr. Fuller takes his time in answering your question, meaning using examples. So some of you don't like that because he may be long in doing that, but it is done so that there can be as much clarity as possible. In other words, not to be confused. Don't want that. Okay, so that's why that is. So you may be on there for a while, but we will try to address every question that we can. All righty. Let's see here. So, yeah, please do that. And you can go from there. You can also go to the chat room, I believe. I said just blogtalkradio.com. You want to make sure that you click on programs. You get the Produce Justice show. You do that bad boy, and then there's the chat room is available, and you can get in there and do your thing. But don't ask me to ask a question for Mr. Fuller because it just ain't going to happen, Captain. Don't do that. And lastly, the book. Yeah, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. You do need the book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Brother, sister, you need that book. And even if you don't get it for yourself, get it for somebody else that they can read it and understand the guide. I mean, if you drive an automobile, you got an owner's manual in there, and hopefully you picked that up and read that to find out how things work or where things are. You need that. Get the book at producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. Okay. We're going to go back to the phone lines. And don't forget now, that person in looks like it's the 202. You need to get a call screen of your name so that I can do you. Or rather, when I get to you, if we can get to you, that I know your name. But anyway, I'm going to try this one. Do we cross our fingers? Do we believe in that? I don't know. Anyway, it says new caller here, so we'll go here. Dr. Senku, California, new caller. We'll try it. Okay, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First, I just want to say that I appreciate Mr. Fuller for making the United Independent Compensatory Code because it's definitely helped me solve a lot of problems. But I have 3 questions. First, I wanted to just ask, the book that Mr. Fuller mentioned, I believe he said it was called Conversations with Nehru. How do you spell Nehru? That's the first question.
I think, really, my spelling has gotten back to the first grade. So really, right now, it's embarrassing, but I don't know. I think it's Nehru, but actually, I don't know, and I definitely don't know how to spell his first name. I wouldn't even attempt that because I don't even know how to pronounce his first name.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll play around with. I'll see.
But you can look in the dictionary. He's probably in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other 2 questions is the other question is how did you come up with, so in the part of the code that talks about the 3 types of people in the known universe, how did you come up with your definition for white people?
Definition for white people?
Yeah, I believe in the code it says a white person is a person who classifies himself as white and is accepted as white by another person who classifies himself as white.
Yes.
How did you come up with that?
I just observed that that's what happens. That's how I came up with it. I just looked. And that's what I see going on around me. I'm just going by what I see.
Okay.
Sometimes you can misinterpret what you're looking at, but, white people say, who is white and who's not. White people determine what racial category you're in. If white people say that a person is white, that person is white. I actually experienced a situation where a couple of people who were classified as Mexican got reclassified, presumably by the white supremacists, directly or indirectly, as white. They were called Mexican in one place, and in another place, they weren't on the paperwork. It didn't say Mexican. It said Caucasian. And that was it. Why? I mean, they themselves, the 2 fellows who had been called Mexican. And I actually experienced that. I knew them. Knew them at least by their classification. They were called Mexicans. 2 of them. And they were, they wanted to be called Mexicans. They had no problem with it and all like that. And that was their racial category. They had no problem with that category. But then when they moved to another place, overseas, they were in the military, somebody reclassified them, presumably the white supremacists, as Caucasian. And we all joked about it. They kind of laughed about it. They say, we're white now, And they put them in a white unit, because back then they still had some units that were still what you call segregated, okay? I was in one. When I came back from school, as long as I was overseas on the front line, I was right with the white guys from Brooklyn. That's what I was assigned to a unit that was basically, that unit had grown out of a National Guard unit, and that unit had been from Brooklyn, New York. And I was one of the few black people in that unit. When I came back from overseas, they put me in the 2nd Field Artillery at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and that was all black except for the commander, who was white.
Yeah.
After I left the front lines, it's all integrated in the front lines. No problem there. A place where I can get killed, okay?
Right.
Came back, and they put me in an all-black unit and had a white commander, and that was the only white person in that unit.
Okay. What's your third question there, sir? Quickly.
Okay, the last one is, could you tell us about how the code, have you ever heard that, how am I trying to say this? I sent the code to, like twice to different individuals in the, in greater confinement, and the penitentiary sent the books back. And someone had told me that you had experienced that before. Is that correct? Have you ever experienced that, trying to send the code to someone in greater confinement and getting it back?
Sure. In a number of penitentiaries. My book is banned. Well, I'm not surprised. But it shouldn't be banned. Nothing anti-American in my books. And the explanations that were given were flimsy, in my opinion, but I expect that. Just like I said on this program this morning earlier, that my book might be all over the place and people distorting it, and the white supremacists certainly are distorting the message. I mean, they have adopted this, using the term white supremacy, but you better believe they're going to start using it in a way that works against non-white people and not for them. Okay? First of all, by saying that I shouldn't be using it, and doing it through, directly or indirectly, through other people, non-white people. But the white supremacists, for years, I mean, would not, for years, they invented that term. I didn't. White supremacy. They were proud of it. But now, here in 2023, they don't want to have nothing to do with it. And they're sending that message out indirectly, I think, to a lot of non-white people. Don't say that, you know, because they're little by little erasing what? History. The parts that they say doesn't work for them. And they're kind of bold about that. They're telling people about that CRT. They say, hey, you can't do that. You can't say that. You know, we used to brag about it, but now we don't want to mention it. Slavery didn't exist. Don't mention it. We'll punish you. It looks like that's what some of them are saying. Slavery didn't exist. We didn't have slaves. They were hired hands. They came running us down looking for work. Just like they're still doing, coming across our borders. That's what the black people did. We didn't haul them around on those ships. They all came and said, we want to go where, you know, some civilization is, where people are working and driving cars and doing stuff that we never seen before. That's how they want to write it now, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And saying plantations, what's that?
Yeah.
Colonialism, what's that? We didn't ever have no colonists. It's not in the history books. Why? Because we write the history books. We don't want you black people to write nothing. Looks like that's where they're going.
Looks like that, yeah. Okay. All righty. Well, thank you, Dr. Sin Q. Don't be a stranger to the program. Okay, let's see here. Who are we going to, let's see if we can work this out. Let's go into D.C. Philip. Let's see if we can work it, because we've been having problems. We apologize for that, but The usual suspects
Hey.
are in play. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What
Hi.
is your question?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. So that I can understand better, when using the word code, is it like a procedure, standard operating procedure, or best practice?
Yes, it's just a way of getting things done, and that's all the code is supposed to be. There's nothing mysterious about it. It's not secret or nothing like that. What is the best way to go about replacing the system of white supremacy with the system of justice? That's the question. All problems are solved through what? The process of questions and answers. So I came to the conclusion the reason black people have failed so far in replacing the system of white supremacy with justice is that the white supremacists have a code and we don't. That's it. And a code is what? Getting things done. You try something and try something and try something and it doesn't work. You don't keep trying to do that thing. You try something else or modify what you're doing. Just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, to use a cliche expression. But how do you keep the baby and throw out the bathwater? That's a code for doing that. You take the baby out of the tub, and then you throw the bathwater out of the tub where the baby was, rather than keep the baby in the tub and throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, that's not the correct code for saving the baby. That's recycling the water, but you can't recycle the baby most likely, so you keep the baby. Mr. Baby's not going to be recycled like the bathwater. I mean, you kill the baby if you throw it out. You don't kill the water. The water just takes another form. So somebody figured that out. So they stopped throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I mean, if they ever did it in the first place. So you learn by trial and error, too.
Mm-hmm.
But a code just means you figure out how to do something and you try it. And if it works, stick with it. Then it becomes a code. And that's all the code really is. We need one. But the code that we have, code just means doing something or getting it done. But we try to do things in a way that we know are not going to work. And the white supremacists do not do that. That's the main difference between what white people do and what black people do. Black people think that by name calling and all like that you're going to get a constructive result. You're not. Stop name calling. You get a better result. Try that. Just try it. I'm not going to call anybody any name, even when I get angry and all like that, if they don't want to be called. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to settle the argument by going to a conversation where I'm going to get a constructive result in everything that I do and say. I started off this program talking about just that, constructive result. Everything that I do, this day and from every day forward, everything that I do and say is going to be codified to get a constructive result. Well, I ain't doing it.
Okay. All righty. Philip, D.C., thank you for your call. Okay, let's see here. See if we're still working here. We've got a new caller. It looks like, hopefully, let's keep our fingers crossed, right? No, I don't believe in that. Michael, new caller, London. Wait a minute, because it's buffering. Okay, I think you're there, Michael. What's your question for Mr. Fuller?
Hi, my question is, how do I persuade my brothers and sisters and also my elders to join us in the fight against white supremacy? A big problem I see is that they're too entrenched in the entertainment industry or they are hooked on the constant pursuit of fiat money, debt society created by white supremacy.
So your question was what?
How do I persuade my brothers and sisters and my
How
elders
do you
to join
persuade?
us? Yes.
Well, you can start by showing them the code book. And starting with the page that says if you don't understand white supremacy, you're not going to understand anything, including the entertainment industry. It's not going to make sense to you at a certain point, if it hadn't already. And you're going to become what? Confused about a lot of things. And that's how you persuade them and tell them, hey, understand who controls the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
Start with that. I mean, when you say entertainment industry, for the most part, you look around for the people who have most of the power in it. Are they white or non-white? And then you say, you're in a system of white supremacy, so now what am I doing in it if I'm what you call making money at it? Each and every day that I'm in it, am I doing something that's constructive or non-constructive? Each and every minute. Because that's what I just finished saying. Every minute, every breath that you take should have a constructive result. So if they're in the entertainment industry, you don't have to tell them all about racism and whatnot, and they don't want to hear it. You can just don't mention it at all. Just say what you did today in the field of, quote, entertainment. Was it constructive or non-constructive? And if it was constructive, how? How was it constructive? Whatever you did in the field of entertainment. Was it constructive? Did it produce a constructive result? What is the type of thing that 1,000 years from now somebody will say, now that was something that really helped the world be a better place? Just ask yourself that. You don't have to ask nobody else. Just ask yourself, this thing that I'm doing, this part that I'm going to play, this song that I'm going to sing, whatever it is.
Okay.
Even you're working behind a counter, I mean, in a restaurant, and you decide you want to sing. Is that going to produce a constructive result? Everybody might clap, or everybody might say, is there any way to stop this noise?
Yeah. Might or might not. Okay. Thank you, Michael. New caller. Thank you so much. Don't be a stranger. Mr. Fuller, when you, because we're not going to have time to get the second one in, but the sergeant that you referred to all the time when you were, I think, were in the Army, did
I was
did
in
he
Air Force.
I mean Air Force. Excuse me, Air Force.
Man,
Let me get that straight.
I have been in the Army and I have been in the Air Force.
Okay, at a time when they were allowed that to happen.
At different times.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you show him those 9 areas? Do you recall of of people activity? And if you did, what was his response to that?
No.
Okay.
I hadn't written that yet.
Oh, okay.
No, I hadn't. I had just started. It was during that time when I was overseas in Japan that I started writing the first few lines of the code. And I don't remember what those lines were.
Okay.
But that's when I started writing. That's when I started thinking about the race issue seriously. Well, before then, I was trying to run away from every issue. That's why I wound up in the Air Force. I mean, just running away.
Mm-hmm.
not trying to go in a particular place, but just running away from wherever I was and whatever I was doing, because nothing made sense to me. I was trying to just like a person that's going down a road and don't know where you're going, but you know that where you are is not where you want to be. But you got no idea what you want to do with your entire existence. And that's when things start coming together for me.
Yes, sir.
When I was in Japan in the 1950s.
So while you were there, Tojo was he in charge or not in charge, or was he dead?
It was right after. It was 5 years after.
Okay.
The war. It was not 5 years. 1956. That's when I was in Japan.
Oh, okay. I think he was deceased.
1956. Oh no, the so-called World War II was over. They had completely built Tokyo by then. I mean, those people really got busy. In fact, I didn't see any traces of the conflict called World War II when I was in Japan. None at all. I mean, it was a modern city in 1956. Now, there were probably parts of it that I didn't see. I'm sure that was the case because Tokyo was burning. I mean, people jumping in the river to get away from the fire, and the river was practically on fire, from what I understand. And those B-29s, I mean, that's something that every Japanese from the old school can tell you about. The B-29 bomber, they drop bombs like bombs are going out of style.
More than Nagasaki and Hiroshima, huh?
Well, I don't know about the details of that, but I do know that they dropped enough where they killed as many people in Japan by that indiscriminate bombing cities, what you call carpet bombing. You call it carpet bombing because it's like a carpet covering the floor. I mean, they bombed.
Mm-hmm. As far as you know, as far as you know, or by evidence, did the people of Japan, so-called Japan, have a collective code to rebuild that city like that?
Got busy right away. Right away. They knew that they had no option. They say, the minute the bombing stopped and all like that, they got busy. They didn't sit around moping and whatnot. They looked at all that devastation and say, we're going to put it all back together again. And you know when we're going to start? We're going to start right this second. And they did. Everybody cooperated with everybody else, even though they had differences with each other and all like that. But they said, hey, we got nothing. So we're going to take that nothing and we're going to put it all back, every scrap of every lumber, every little nail that we can find, we're going to do it. Why? We don't have no choice. Nobody cares about us.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. So thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, caller. We apologize for all the little things that happened to this show today. Some could get through, some couldn't. Even on the chat room, I tried to open up some chats and describe some things to people and could not get through. So, but that is to be expected when you have a show as popular as what Mr. Fuller is putting out. You're going to have some things happen. So we apologize for that. We hope to do better next week. Listen, get the material by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And Mr. Fuller, you get the last word.
Well, I'm going to end it like I started today. This day, and from this day forward, every move that you make this your part of your personal code. I'm going to be someone who in everything that I do and everything that I say produces a constructive result. Now that's code. If every non-white person, every black person on the planet just does that, I'm not going to say or do anything that's not constructive. From now on, we'll have this thing wrapped up. All the problems that we have.